Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent moderation as usual. Thank you for that. And yes, we are now getting into the second segment of our webinar today. We will be talking about target gender equality. This is a UN Global Compact initiative which is taking place in various local networks around the globe. And we will have with us today two speakers. Is Elizabeth Ann Reish from the UN Global Compact Office in New York, and we also have with us Mr. Mashouk Mujib Chaudhry. He's a Bangladeshi who is based in Dhaka. He's in DBL Group as the sustainability manager. So we are going to talk about the target gender equality, some of the highlights of the program. I just want to say this is a new initiative that's been ongoing, and we'll hear more in details how that is being implemented, not only not only in the UN Global Compact Office in New York, but how local networks are taking it forward. We will also hear some of the ways in that companies are associating themselves in this program. So become a UN Global Compact member, then you can be part of this really exciting initiative of target gender equality. So the objective of this program is actually targeting gender-based decisions within your company to enforce or engage in women empowerment initiatives. So a lot of the companies are already doing that all across the world, but you see that though they're doing this all across the world, it seems that sometimes, we do not do it on a strategic basis. We do it on an ad hoc basis. And we need to take stock of that and try to initiate our engagements in a way that will bring up change. We are talking about reshaping the workplace. If we want to reshape the workplace, we need to bring women in the forefront. As our speakers in the first session did mention, and my counterpart in Sri Lanka, Ratika, mentioned, we have to create an enabling environment for women to get into non-traditional jobs and traditional jobs, of course. But then there should be that scope, because the new generation is coming up and the new generation wants innovation. We need to build that innovation within our companies in the corporate sector, and we'll hear more about that today. I want to introduce to you first our first speaker. She is Elizabeth Ann Reish, and she is working with the UN Global Compact. She has been working on human rights, decent work, gender, and other initiatives of the UN Global Compact Office, and she is working very closely with the local networks on this initiative of target gender equality. It's a very interesting initiative that is being taken over by companies in different local networks across the globe, and we'll hear more about that from Elizabeth today. She holds a business degree from on international development in law from University of Vienna, and she also holds another degree from Georgetown. Her experience in this in the issues of gender has been vast. She has worked in
Shaman, you froze for a second, but I assume I'm able to speak
Yeah,
now?
I'm
Okay,
back.
great.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Elizabeth. The floor is yours. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Shaman, and thanks for the kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here today, and of course, I was already able to meet many of you through local workshops of the Target Gender Equality Program in Bangladesh and both Sri Lanka. So really looking forward to also hearing from DBL Group and others later throughout the day. I know we have a really packed agenda and exciting programming coming up, so I'm gonna keep it quite short. But I really just wanted to look back for a second and see what we've done over the past year, as well as look forward in terms of what's ahead for the next round of target gender equality. Here on this slide, you'll see that a few key stats from our target gender equality COVID-19 quiz, which we launched in the very beginning of the pandemic last year, because that's actually also the time when we launched target gender equality. So amidst the start of the global pandemic, against that backdrop of gender equality really being expected to increase in terms of inequality throughout the world. And we see a few different stats here which outline that fortunately companies indicated that they really assessed their policies when it came to working parents and caregivers. But at the same time, there was less attention on supporting women-owned businesses or women workers across the value chain, and quite little attention on the topic of domestic violence, which we all know picked up throughout the pandemic drastically around the world. I'm showing this slide as, of course, given this backdrop, gender equality is more important than ever. We saw that companies that were focusing already on flexible workplace policy and inclusion and topics like that sort of had a hand up at the beginning of the pandemic, being able to adjust a lot more rapidly in times of crisis. However, it was really encouraging to see that despite all these new challenges, interest really persisted in getting actively engaged in the Target Gender Equality Initiative. So it's really an initiative that's overall focused on the topic of women's representation and leadership, and supporting and working with companies to set and meet ambitious targets for that space. However, we are really looking at a holistic approach. What that means is that given data from a tool that we have that allows companies to assess their performance, and where we have over 2,000 responses from all around the world already, we see that while lots of companies have their commitment to gender equality in place, only around 30% of companies have holistic gender equality strategies that really look at gaps and opportunities, as well as are setting measurable and time-bound targets. So we really want to get to measurable and accountable action through this initiative. We do recognize that while we look at women's representation and leadership, and that's something that many of the companies encountered throughout the past year in the program, we of course are touching upon so many other issues, such as sexual harassment, equal pay, unconscious bias, women in STEM and supply chains, as you just discussed, as well as, of course, support for working parents, how to engage men, and so on. As probably lots of companies already have many of these pieces in place, so it's rather how can we take all these pieces and pack them into a holistic strategy that really supports your overarching end goal of how can I advance the target and stay accountable to my actions, and really make sure it moves the needle for gender equality and advances gender balance at all levels, including the top level. So also Shahamin said local networks are really the backbone of this initiative. And at this point, I also wanted to give a shout out and big thank you to Sheen and Shahamin in Bangladesh, as well as Chanani, Mariam and Ratika in Sri Lanka, that have really been driving this initiative on the ground. As we also say, that's sort of the beauty and the strength of the initiative, that of course it's designed firstly at a global level and brings all these different efforts together, but it's really crucial to bring out the different specific local differences and challenges that would need to really be at the center of any solutions that a company develops. So in the first round, which is coming to an end now, we were engaging over 300 companies across 19 countries across all regions. It was exciting to see that the breakdown was really quite balanced between around a quarter of SMEs engaged, several national companies across all sizes, as well as around 40% multinational companies, but they are actually mostly local subsidiaries of multinational companies to really bring and scale up these different local learnings from around the world. We were working with companies across all sectors, and especially excited that quite a lot of male-dominated sectors were also engaged. So we are also working together with lots of other different organizations, as of course we acknowledge that there's so much huge expertise on gender out there that we really want to build on, amplify, and align our messaging with all these other actors. So really grateful for their support as well. But then here I wanted to just give a really quick snapshot of some examples of what came out of the program. As I said, we're just wrapping up the first round, so we can't present overall results across all countries yet, as also companies from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh might know, that we're just now completing the final surveys and collecting different results. But here's just to give you an idea. It's really encouraging that almost all companies are saying that they're going to take the web's gender gap analysis tool on an annual basis, which will really make them assess their performance regularly and see where their progress is at. In Spain, just to give you one local example from another country, all participating companies have indicated that they're working on their action plans and have identified concrete interventions. So these range from concrete targets to reduce the gender gap, inclusive languages, or working with STEM-focused universities. So really a broad range. 90% of them already have a draft target in place. And out of those, 30% are focused on achieving gender balance by 2025, which was quite surprising as there's also a lot of male-dominated industries engaging in the country. So it's really exciting to see that so many are actually really ambitiously aiming for 2025 in time to have benefits kick in order to advance the SDGs. Here are a few other examples of what companies are doing. So for example, in Indonesia, a company that's engaged has committed to start gathering sex disaggregated data through a new dashboard, as well as separating gender in different focus groups to really start knowing where the baseline is at and how to take action. A UK company indicated that it will make all their different local offices take the web's gender gap analysis tool in order to feed up local differences and results. And there's another multinational company engaged that decided that based on this program, they'll establish new global minimums for parental leave and flexibility practices all around the world. So it's really exciting that, as I said, the program does not only lead to companies setting specific targets, which of course we want to see, but would be a little bit less exciting to report on as it's just numbers, so to say, on a slide, but also leading to such a vast range of practices and actions that companies are intending to take. So soon we'll be sharing the final snapshot of the results with all of you, including from more Asian countries, including yours. But what's ahead? So we'll actually be doubling the geographic scale of the program, and we just launched it in 45 countries around the world. So really expanding across regions. So we hope that many of you are going to join us in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh this next year as well. What the Global Compact also did is that we launched a new strategy at the beginning of this year, that our CEO, Sandal Chiambo, is really excited about as well. You'll see here on this slide that gender equality is really front and center of the strategy, and one of the main areas where the Global Compact is going to lead and shape going forward. Which this means is that we'll look at gender equality a lot more intensively, and we'll also see what are the other areas that we should expand on and should offer programming on, aligned with what we're doing in target gender equality already. So this might be areas such as women's entrepreneurship, procurement, setting targets in that space, or sexual harassment in more depth, unpaid care work, and so on. And everything we are going to do, we're going to focus on it through an action-oriented lens, making sure that we really call for accountable action and target-oriented action, so to say. So really encouraging companies to set measurable targets or other types of actions in that space, similarly to target gender equality. So definitely encourage you to stay tuned, so to say, as we'll be sharing more very shortly, and we'll be offering additional programming or, for example, building out the target gender equality umbrella to cover even more different opportunities if that's of interest to you. And also with that regard, we're always really keen to hear from you what's really the issues that are top of mind and where would you be happy or in need of more guidance, so to say. But lastly, as I just said, the main point is really that we're going to focus on accountability and these types of outcomes. Because what we're seeing, including at many, many conferences that I'm sure many of you have been at, it's really exciting to hear from companies the many different initiatives they're doing, the new programs, the new policy, a new project in a specific area. It makes you feel, of course, the needle is moving, there's different things going on. At the same time, though, what I've also personally many times have encountered is afterwards, if you go on web pages by companies, you often see that the top leadership, including the board, if you scroll down the different pictures and biographies, often are still almost entirely made up of men. And often many men that look very much alike in terms of race, age, background, and so on. So even though different efforts are in place, they don't change anything at the top level, giving also women a voice and opportunity there. So what Sandra also pointed out in one of her last op-eds in the Financial Times was that next time you hear about a company's good practice, of course, congratulate them for the efforts, but also ask how it's connected to their broader business strategy. What are the long-term targets? How are you tracking accountability? And what does your company's leadership look like that's going to enforce these different actions? To really make sure we're not only talking about gender equality and celebrating different efforts, but are really looking at it holistically in the big picture to really move the needle for gender equality on the long term. So I know I've already taken up my time, so thank you so much for joining us today, and happy to stay on for further actions. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Mashuk on his experience on the program, as well as I hope to see many of you going forward being engaged in the program and throughout this next year.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for explaining about the Target Gender Equality Initiative. I think it really explains how important it is for companies to address this issue and implement it in a strategic way. As you said, most companies are already doing a lot of gender programs, projects, but it's on ad hoc basis. It's not on a strategy level. And I think it's very important that we take into consideration how companies can incorporate it to their business model as well. So thank you very much, Elizabeth, for that. I want to now ask our next speaker. In fact, we have three speakers. So the next speaker is Mashuk Mujib Chaudhry. As I said, he's the manager of sustainability at DBL Group. Not only that, he has 7 years of experience in DBL focusing on sustainability. So DBL has taken the sustainability agenda to its heart and has been implementing in the last few years immense initiatives that have changed the whole landscape of the ready-made garment and apparel sector in Bangladesh. It's one of the leading apparel sectors in Bangladesh, and Mashuk has worked in DBL, different initiatives. They have different programs and projects on women empowerment. Not only that, how to link these with communities and how to look at change, not only at the worker level or the participation of women, but also looking at women leadership in managerial positions, and as well as in supply chains. He is also our SDG champion. He got the UNGC SDG Pioneer Award in 2019 and for his women empowerment initiatives in DBL. And now I ask Ashok to share with us how this has gone about and how have you come to grips and what is the main focus you see that engaging women in different spheres of the value chain. Go ahead, Mashuk. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So just be sharing a presentation with while it's loading. So it's just trying to highlight some of our experience with target gender equality. I hope the slides are visible. So in brief, So the key takeaways that we had web's gender gap analysis tool. Then because that really helped us on identify that what are the particular parts that we need to focus on. I mean, but one thing really interesting about that particular tool is that it's really talking about equality. For example, I do remember that there was one particular part where it's talking about paternity leave, not just maternity leave, parental leave in general. So likewise, there were other tools as well. So these are the ones which initially helped us enable and fully understand what are the things that we should be taking on. The next part would be setting ambitious and attainable targets. So we do have targets, and one of my colleagues from uh, Target Gender Equality, Labondo, she stated that creating gender balance in the workplace is a business case. It contributes to the world economy, which is very much correct. Because we initially, when I was in the SDG Pioneers program back in New York in 2019, there was the first time when Lisa Kingo, when she stated about TGE, she stated about a 257-year-old gap. What we see that due to the approaching of the COVID situation, this has become a 300 plus year old gap now. I mean, there's not specific figure right now, but this is the contribution, or this is the problem that has happened. So the action for gender equality is becoming more and more important. Another key takeaway is the setting of interim targets. So what we had was initially having overall targets, but we need to have interim targets as well. So that really help us move more sustainably, so to say, because we can have an overall target, but if we do not have, if we can have a 5-year target, but if we do not have interim targets, year-on-year targets, that will not help us achieve uh, proper properly achieve our goals. The action planning guide, that's one of the things that we're working on. That's one of the end parts, or rather, that's one of the starting parts of target gender equality. So this is one of the tools that we're really trying to use within our company. So we're going to different. We're talking with our management, senior management, and then how to properly um, get the goals and values which must be integrated with our values as well. So it's basically another for Rubai is another participant of the target gender equality. She stated that everyone in the organization needs to be made accountable for it. So this is one of the parts of the action planning guide that would be really helping out, and setting strategies for organizational rollout. So the TG initiative is basically showing us the tools, and the best part is that these are very much practical tools, and that helps us move within the organization. Going beyond target gender equality, we've selected a target gender equality champion. So Pablo will be leading this particular program. So this is another motivation factor as well, because once we have I mean, it's just not within the top management and everything. So we have program champions as well. So these are the ones which will motivate people to move more. And we've seen that how these two participants are contributing within target gender equality and within beyond target gender equality as well. So they will be rolling the program out within the organization, and we're also considering the nature of business. For example, if we set up an equality target for all sectors, that becomes a little bit of a problem, at least initially. So the first steps would be to, when we have appropriate targets for appropriate business types. For example, we might have a more equal targets for the apparel manufacturing, but for the textile manufacturing, that over that particular case, we have to be a little bit slow, so to say, because that requires a significant amount of transition. Then, of course, setting ambitious targets accordingly. So what we are doing currently, that we're talking with the different business units, business heads, and then they will be setting up proper targets that which would be more relevant to them, rather than setting any random targets or general target from the group, but rather sector-wise targets. So these would be much more sustainable approach to target gender equality. And the best part is that we have full support from the top management, because our directors are basically directly involved with it. So they have made people accountable. They're making people accountable now. So this to drive it further. Just an overview of the gender equality initiatives that we have in DWL Group. So we have the Women in Factories initiative. We had, there was the very first program that we had focusing specifically on women empowerment. was by CARE and a local NGO, Sheva. Then, based on the learning, what we did was we had a female supervisor leadership program. So this is still ongoing. And based on that, on the sideline, we have with CSO Center with Amphori and Shapola, that's another women empowerment program. So the basic idea of it is to promote women workers, of these two programs, to promote women workers to women supervisors roles. And furthermore, these will be rolling out for not just female supervisor leadership program, but line chief, in charge, etc., and going up further the chain. But what targets gender equality was, which is very interesting, is that it's targeting the management level. We had programs within the more worker level, but now we're targeting the management level. So this was the greatest advantage that we had learned from target gender equality. We are also involved with two other programs, the She Trades Commonwealth Project by the International Trade Center and the Corporate Connect program. So the similarity with these programs is that to include women-owned businesses within our supply chain. So by this particular way, what we're doing is that we're having an overall and holistic approach to equality. It's not just our workers, but how to engage workers in the entire supply chain as well. So within our buyer side, within our supplier side as well. So as Madam has mentioned that I was recognized as a 2019 SDG pioneer for the empowerment of working women. So beyond SDG pioneer, so I've been involved with the corporate connect project, the ITC She Trades program as well. So basically how to engage women within the supply chain. So what we're doing is we're trying to look at the databases of our current database of our supplies, how much percentage of it are women owned, and how to increase it. So these are the interventions that help us identify better where the intervention areas would be. Then target gender equality itself, of course, it is going on. And I'm also currently in the Young SDG Innovators Program. In the first, in YCIP 1, I was in the champion role, but now I'm in a mentor role. And one of the reasons, one of the other advantages is that I've been recently took part in the TGE live session just a couple of weeks back. So that's another inspiration part as well. So the recognition of SDG pioneer, that has really opened up so many other ways as well. So it's not just a motivation factor, it's not just a recognition factor, but how to take it further as well. What we believe in is three words in relating to, whether it be relating to women, whether it be relating to anyone for that matter, is to engage, enable, and empower. So once we engage people, engage women within our workplaces, within our supply chains, we need to enable them as well. And then the result would be empowering. So with this, I would like to end. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. It was really exciting to hear, Mashuk, from you that how we are, like DBL is engaging in the Target Gender Equality Initiative, as well as what you're doing to uplift the women's role in different tiers of the company. And the interesting thing about developing the leadership is also changing mindsets. It's very important that we change mindsets. Workers come in thinking that's the only job they have. They cannot advance. They do not have a career path. And this initiative that you just explained DBL is doing has created that change in mindset that women can be at an upper tier in the company, can play a vital role in leadership. And I think other companies will follow suit. So you're a good example. DBL has shown a great example for change in gender dimensions. And as you said, I like the word you say, engage, enable, and empower. Yes, you start from engaging and then you create that enabling environment in your company where women do feel empowered. So we want to see women in non-traditional roles as well. We, not only the basic roles, but non-traditional roles. And technology is there. We have seen digitalization during this pandemic, how it's brought women into different spheres. So we want to see more change there. So thank you, Mashuk, for that. And, it's it's been very nice to hear also about the WEBs, the Women Empowerment Principles, the gender gap analysis, and also the tools that have helped DBL in creating the gender balance within their company, and also paving a way for ambitious targets. And the TGE program will actually help in guiding those solutions and creating an enabling environment where you can also work with your supply chains on addressing these gaps and identifying the gaps. So we hope that you get more benefit from the TGE initiative, and we look forward in hearing more experiences from DBL Group. So with that, I want to invite our third speaker for this segment. She is Ms. Dulmini Jayawardena. She's a senior manager of delivery excellence. She started this journey with this company, Virtusa, which combines quality expertise and innovation in engineering to develop unmatched quality with consistent results delivered through digital transformation. And this is the right time for that digital transformation, where companies can engage more women. I think this pandemic has taught us one thing, that where women as men can have that change in technological skill development. And I think we will hear more from Ms. Jayawardena about how Virtusa has engaged in this transformational journey. So over to you. The floor is open.
Thank you so much, Shamin. Let me start my video. Hi, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Hi, everybody. So as Shamin said, I work for Virtusa, and we have been part of the TGE program ever since it was launched in Sri Lanka. So I will like to walk you through the journey that Virtusa had with the TGE program. Let me share my screen with you. Right. I hope all of you can see my screen. So first of all, I'd like to take this moment to thank the UN Global Compact Sri Lanka Network and the TGE for giving Virtusa the opportunity to participate in the TGE program. It was a great experience to work with you all and the other fellow companies. So this has been a great platform for Virtusa to learn and share experiences on gender equality aspects and what measures we can take to elevate our female workforce and to build female leaders within Virtusa. So I'd like to walk you through why joining the TGE was important to us as a company as well as a country. So you see, Sri Lanka's ranking in the Global Gender Gap Report in 2020 has declined within the past 14 years. In 2006, we ranked at 13th out of 114 countries, but in 2020, the ranking dropped to a shocking 102nd out of 153 countries. So this growing gender gap was surprising, given that Sri Lanka was one of the South Asian countries that has achieved the Millennium Development Goals of universal primary education. You see, the enrollment in secondary education for females is a 90% plus, in contrast to 87% in males, where we ranked at first. And the enrollment in tertiary education for females was 23.4% against 15.8% for males, again ranking at first. But you see, the labor force participation for females is 38.2% for 77% of males, and we rank at 130th. So you see, it was very important to us to assess Virtusa as a whole, to benchmark ourselves where we stand in terms of the industry and in terms of the country. So in a meta-analysis named Corporate Governance and International Review conducted in 2016, it found that female board representation is positively correlated with corporate social performance. So wherever there was female representation in the board, you see that there was better decision making, better monitoring, and better strategic involvement, and greater attention to environment and social governance issues. So these factors are critical for companies to achieve the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. So why this increasing female representation is important? In our industry, the IT industry, we've seen that whenever there is high representation of women in the board of directors, there is a significantly higher financial performance on average. In companies with higher percentage of women in their board of directors, they outperformed in terms of return on equity, return on sales, or return on invested capital. Now, these stats are from US Fortune 500 companies, and you see that we can take pointers from this Catalyst study. So therefore, there is a growing need in the IT industry of improving the female labor force participation and building and grooming female leaders in our country as well as in our industry. So there is a famous saying in Virtusa, how can you possibly win when half of your workforce is on the bench? So this is the exact same reason why we joined the TGE. Undoubtedly, the TGE, by joining TGE, we were able to understand where we stand as a company, and what are the matrices and how we have performed in terms of gender equality. So we were aware that the stats in the female representation in the workforce, but we wanted to increase the women's representation in leadership positions and leadership in business. And we wanted to set corporate targets for ourselves in our own flexibility, and to work on our own pace to achieve these goals. And also, we wanted to get more insights into gender smart initiatives from both global and SL context, so that we can implement those initiatives within Virtusa. And also, we knew this was a great opportunity to network and share experiences with the other companies who are in the TGE program. So while we went through these 7 women's empowerment principles, the WEPs, this program actually helped us in a number of ways. So we were able to understand our gender equality performance through the use of the gap analysis tool that we spoke of earlier, and baseline ourselves. And it was also an accelerated learning opportunity. We gained a lot of best practices through many global case studies, as well as the SL context. And it was a networking opportunity for us. We learned best practices from the network of peers, UN partners, and other experts as well. It was a platform to showcase women leaders in the company who are key in driving the business success and the sustainability. And we also were able to understand the metrics that we need to monitor by gender, so that we can understand our true performance in this area. So with all these learnings that we gained from the TGE program, we were actually able to strengthen 2 of our initiatives which we had in Virtusa. One is Women of Virtusa Network, we call it the WOW, and REPS is a performance management system. I will talk about it a bit later. So this Women of Virtusa...
Excuse me. Can I just say we're running a behind time, so could you please wrap up in 3 minutes? Because
Sure.
It was a 5 minutes presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, so Women of Virtusa Network, actually, so these are the initiatives that we have taken. So if I go through upskilling and development, mentoring and career coaching, working mothers focused initiatives, recognition and celebration, anti-sexual harassment, health and well-being. So we have implemented, and we already have some programs running on this across these pillars. And also these are some of the programs that we had run. And in terms of REPS, this is what I wanted to touch upon. So this is a RPA-based, robotic process automation-based performance management system. So The employees can see their own performance in real time and their ranking within their designation. This actually removes unconscious bias or subjectivity when it comes to promotions or pay hikes. So in terms of promotions, we use this RPA tool to get the promotion eligibility sheet in terms of criteria, designation, tenure, performance, etc. So this is a limited human intervention in terms of generating the promotion eligibility list. So our entire performance management process becomes very transparent and without any bias. So the next steps from the TGE program is for us to establish a process of tracking and monitoring key metrics by gender and strengthening the Women of Virtusa network to grow more future leaders. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation for y'all, and thank you so much for this opportunity. And it was a great learning experience for Virtusa and personally for myself as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting to hear from you that how Virtusa has been engaged in the Target Gender Equality program in Sri Lanka. And we wish you all the best. Thank you for being with us. So this is the end of this segment on Target Gender Equality. We hope that all of you have enjoyed the session and learned a lot of things that are happening, very exciting issues on gender. We had the first session on the supply chain and the gender gap. The second session of this webinar was on the target gender equality and how companies in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are engaging in it and implementing it.